Carved into a mountainside, Petra has survived for 2,500 years. Its popularity soared off the back.
For more than 2,000 years, people have walked past one of the world's most famous buildings, without realizing that something was hidden directly beneath it. Millions of tourists have stood in front of Petra's Treasury. They admired its towering columns, its enormous stone facade, and the mystery surrounding who built it. But almost no one stopped to ask one simple question: what lies underneath it? However, in 2024, when archaeologists finally excavated a hidden chamber beneath the treasury, what they uncovered wasn't gold. It was an untouched tomb, ancient human remains, and clues pointing to a mystery far darker than anyone expected. So what have the archaeologists finally found beneath Petra? And why has it left the whole world in shock? Let's get into it. The Rose-Red City. Petra is one of the new 7 wonders of the world. That alone tells you how extraordinary it is. But what makes Petra different from almost every other ancient city is not just its beauty. It is the way it is built. Instead of being constructed from stone blocks, nearly the entire city was carved directly into towering cliffs of pink and red sandstone in the desert of southern Jordan. That famous color is exactly why the English poet John William Burgon later described it as a rose-red city half as old as time, a phrase that has remained linked to Petra ever since. The city was constructed more than 2,000 years ago by the Nabateans. These were the Arab people who began as nomadic traders, and over time they gained control of the caravan routes that carried frankincense, myrrh, spices, silk, and other valuable goods between southern Arabia. The wealth from that trade transformed a group of desert merchants into one of the richest civilizations in the ancient Middle East. Around the 4th century BC, Petra became the capital of the Nabatean kingdom. For nearly 500 years, it stood at the crossroads of major trade routes connecting 3 continents. Then, in 106 AD, the Roman Empire annexed the Nabatean kingdom. Petra remained an important Roman city for some time, but its fortunes slowly began to change. As trade shifted from overland caravans to sea routes, the city lost the source of wealth that had made it powerful. In 363 AD, a powerful earthquake struck the region, damaging many of Petra's monuments and crippling the remarkable water system that had kept this city alive. Petra survived the earthquake, but it never fully recovered. Over the following centuries, its population continued to shrink. During the Byzantine period, parts of the city were still occupied, but by the early Islamic era, Petra had been largely abandoned, with only a handful of nomads remaining among its ruins. Eventually, the once great city disappeared from the outside world's memory. Only the local Bedouin tribes still knew where it was. For generations, they kept the city's location hidden deep within the mountains, until 1812. That year, a young Swiss explorer named Johann Ludwig Burckhardt arrived in the region. Disguised as a Muslim traveler, he persuaded a local guide to lead him through a narrow canyon called the Sick. Burckhardt followed the guide through the narrow canyon with towering cliffs rising on both sides. He had no idea where the path would lead. Then, after one final turn, the canyon suddenly opened. Standing before him was a massive structure carved into the rock. It was Petra, a city that the outside world had not seen for centuries. It stretched across nearly 264 square kilometers, with hundreds of monuments carved directly into the sandstone cliffs. The Treasury. When people think of Petra, they usually picture one building, Al-Khazneh, better known as the Treasury. It is the very first monument visitors see after walking through the 1.2-kilometer-long Sick. As the narrow canyon suddenly opens, A massive rock-cut facade appears right in front of you. Standing nearly 40 meters tall and carved directly into a sandstone cliff, the Treasury is one of the greatest examples of ancient rock-cut architecture ever created. Its towering columns, statues, and intricate carvings are so precise that it is hard to believe they were carved from a single mountain. But for centuries, people cared less about how the Treasury was built and more about what was hidden inside it. Local Bedouin legends claimed that a powerful pharaoh had hidden his treasure inside the large stone urn carved at the very top of the monument. People believed the gold was still there. The story became so popular that some even fired rifles at the urn, hoping to break it open and claim the treasure for themselves. Those bullet marks can still be seen today. But no matter what people tried, they couldn't find any treasure inside the structure. The urn itself was made of solid stone. And all this created a huge problem. If the building everyone called the Treasury was never built to hold treasure, then why was it built at all? Even today, archaeologists cannot give a complete answer. Most researchers believe it was built during the reign of King Aretas IV, who ruled Petra between 9 BC and 40 AD. At the time, the Nabatean kingdom was at the peak of its wealth and power. The most widely accepted theory is that it was a royal tomb, but some archaeologists believe it had a religious purpose instead, or that it was used for different purposes over the years. However, one thing is clear: the Treasury is only one part of a much bigger story. As archaeologists continued studying Petra, they realized that the city was never filled with palaces and houses alone. Instead, they found hundreds of tombs carved into the surrounding cliffs. In fact, many researchers now describe Petra as a city of the dead, because almost everywhere you look, there are burial chambers cut into the rock. And that makes you wonder, if the most famous building in Petra stands at the entrance to a city filled with tombs, then what lies beneath it? For decades, nobody knew, because any excavation beneath the Treasury required special permission and had to be done without damaging the monument. And finally, after years of waiting, one team of archaeologists got a rare opportunity to look beneath Petra's Treasury in 2003's the first excavation. In 2003, Jordan's Department of Antiquities, working with the Petra Archaeological Park, finally launched an excavation at Petra. The team began digging in the open courtyard in front of the Treasury. And barely 6 meters into the excavation, they made an unexpected discovery. Hidden beneath the left side of the monument was an underground burial chamber. Inside, archaeologists found the skeletal remains of at least 11 people. They also uncovered pottery, bronze, and iron artifacts that had remained buried for almost 2,000 years. The pottery dated the tomb to the early 1st century AD, during the reign of King Aretas IV, when Petra was at the height of its power. It was the first real evidence that something important had been hidden beneath the Treasury. But the discovery raised even more questions. How large was the underground complex? Were there more chambers? And what else was still hidden beneath the stone? Before the team could continue digging, the project lost funding. The excavation came to a halt, and whatever else was hidden beneath Petra remained untouched. However, Richard Bates, a geophysicist from the University of St. Andrews, believed the story wasn't over. He had one simple theory. If archaeologists had found burial chambers beneath the left side of the Treasury, then why couldn't there be matching chambers beneath the right side as well? But there was one problem. No one was allowed to simply dig in front of the Treasury. It was one of the most protected archaeological sites in Jordan. So they came up with a clever idea. In 2024, Bates and his team found a new way to look underground without touching a single stone. They scanned the ground beneath the right side of the treasury using ground-penetrating radar. Then, they compared the results with the tombs already found on the left side. The match was almost perfect. Both sides showed empty underground spaces at the same depth and in almost the exact same position. That was all the evidence Jordanian officials needed. A limited excavation was finally approved. The project brought together Jordan's Department of Antiquities, the American Center of Research, ACOR, the Petra Development and Tourism Region Authority, and researchers from the University of St. Andrews. Together, they prepared to investigate what had been hidden beneath the treasury for nearly 2,000 years. And, in August of 2024, the team officially began the excavation. As this was one of the most important archaeological sites in Jordan, every step had to be taken with extreme care. The team removed the soil one layer at a time. Every layer was documented before it was touched. It looked more like surgery than a treasure hunt. As the excavation continued, the team uncovered broken pottery, charcoal, and layers of ancient debris. Everything looked exactly as archaeologists would expect, but that was only the beginning. Because soon, the team was about to uncover exactly what they had been searching for: the hidden chamber. The deeper the team dug, the more certain they became that this wasn't just an empty space beneath the treasury. Something had been built here. Soon, stone steps began to appear, leading down into complete darkness. As the team descended these stone steps, they found smooth sandstone walls carved with remarkable precision. Every surface had been carefully shaped. Every edge had been cut by hand. There was no doubt that it had been built by the Nabateans nearly 2,000 years ago. At the bottom of the staircase, the team reached what looked like a sealed entrance. Massive stone blocks had been fitted together so tightly that almost no gaps remained between them. The team knew opening it would be one of the most difficult tasks of this whole excavation. They couldn't simply break through the stones. Every block had to be removed carefully to avoid damaging whatever lay behind the wall. So, using small hand tools and delicate archaeological equipment, they slowly loosened the stones one by one. And after a whole week of effort, a narrow opening appeared in the chamber. Cold and stale air escaped from the chamber below. The team switched on their lights and stepped inside. At first, all they could see were walls. The chamber was remarkably well preserved. Unlike many of Petra's tombs that had been disturbed by floods or looters, this room looked almost untouched. Then their lights reached the floor, and that was where the team found what they had been searching for all along. Lying across the chamber were the remains of 12 people: men, women, and children. They had not been thrown together. Each body had been placed deliberately rather than thrown into the chamber. Several rested inside carved burial niches, while others lay side by side as though they had been buried together. And all of these skeletons have been surrounded by burial offerings: bowls, ceramic jars, and fragments of bronze and iron. Just as the team was recording these findings, one of the team members noticed something strange. One of the skeletons still had a ceramic vessel resting against its ribs. It looked almost as if the person had been holding it at the moment they were buried. Josh Gates, who was filming the excavation for a Discovery Channel documentary, immediately noticed something unusual. The vessel looked strikingly similar to the Holy Grail from Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. It was an ironic moment. The famous movie had been filmed at the Treasury above them, and now, beneath that same monument, archaeologists had uncovered a real ancient vessel beside a sealed burial. Later examination showed it was actually the upper half of a broken Nabatean jug dating to around the 1st century BC. The second sealed room. For most archaeologists, the story could have ended there. An untouched tomb, 12 complete skeletons, artifacts nearly 2,000 years old. It was already one of the biggest discoveries ever made beneath Petra. But soon after the excavation, another story began to spread, not through official reports, not through scientific papers, but through rumors linked to people who were said to be close to the excavation. According to those accounts, the team may have found signs of something else. Behind the back wall of the newly discovered tomb, ground scans were said to show another underground space. This one was different. It was smaller. It appeared deeper inside the bedrock. And unlike the first chamber, its shape wasn't clear. The radar images reportedly looked uneven and difficult to understand. No one knew exactly what was down there. Some people reportedly believed it could be another hidden chamber. Others thought it might simply be a natural crack in the rock. According to the same stories, some members of the team wanted to stop. The first tomb had already produced an incredible discovery. There was no reason to risk damaging the site for something that might not even exist. But if another hidden space really existed, some members of the team wanted to find out what was inside. This is where the story becomes much more uncertain. Some accounts claim the team opened the space, and what they found left them shocked. Because, unlike the peaceful burial chamber, this one was described very differently. Instead of the carefully arranged burials found in the first chamber, the rumors described something far more disturbing. The skeletons were said to be scattered across the floor, with no sign that they had ever been laid to rest with care. Some were piled on top of one another, while others were twisted into strange positions, as though panic had filled the room in their final moments. Even stranger, some of the skulls were said to be cracked. Broken ribs and shattered bones were also rumored to be scattered throughout the chamber, leading some to wonder if these people had died in a violent event rather than a peaceful burial. If all these rumors are true, they would paint a completely different picture from the quiet burial chamber discovered nearby. Petra's biggest mystery. The excavation may have ended, but the real mystery is only beginning. Because now, archaeologists have to find out who were the 12 people buried inside. The skeletons will undergo DNA testing to discover whether the people buried here were members of the same family, unrelated individuals, or even people who came from different parts of the ancient world. The answers could reveal family relationships and migration patterns that have never before been documented at Petra. But DNA is only one piece of the puzzle. Scientists also plan to examine the bones and teeth using isotope analysis. Tiny chemical traces locked inside them can reveal where these people grew up and what they ate during their lives. That single discovery could completely change who archaeologists believe was buried beneath the Treasury. The objects found inside the tomb are being studied just as carefully. The ceramic vessels, the broken jug, the fragments of bronze and iron. For decades, researchers could only make a guess about this place. Now, for the first time, they have real evidence to work with. As for the rumored second chamber, that story isn't finished yet. If another chamber truly exists, it will need its own excavation, dating, and scientific review before archaeologists can accept it as fact. Until then, the official discovery remains clear. One sealed tomb, 12 skeletons, and one of the most important Nabatean discoveries in decades. Yet, perhaps the biggest discovery isn't the tomb itself. It's the realization that Petra is still hiding its secrets. In 2016, researchers using satellite imagery and drone photography discovered a massive buried platform, roughly the size of an Olympic swimming pool, that had gone unnoticed for centuries. If something that enormous could remain hidden in plain sight, how many more chambers still lie beneath the sandstone? After all, Petra covers nearly 264 square kilometers, with hundreds of monuments and tombs, many of which have never been fully explored. For more than 2,000 years, history tried to erase this city. Yet beneath the desert, Petra continued protecting its secrets. And after everything archaeologists have discovered so far, it seems the rose-red city still has many more stories left to tell. For centuries, people believed Petra's greatest mystery was the treasure hidden inside the Treasury. But after everything archaeologists have uncovered, it turns out they were looking in the wrong place. The real secret wasn't inside the monument. It was buried beneath it. So after all this, what do you think is still hidden beneath the rose-red city? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more amazing stories like this. We'll see you in the next one.